Make me hungry.
That was a very good first second of the
We're
recording of this
I
episode.
didn't know. Sorry.
Just for those of you who are not listening to this live, this is actually a live recording of another episode for podcasts that have been created through the project Love Actually, which is financed by the European Union. And we do have more people coming to the event, which is amazing. And yes, we are broadcasting. We are not broadcasting, but we are recording live as a part of the launch events for Love Actually. And today we do have a discussion about many interesting things, mainly about sex education and inclusive sex education, as well as inclusion within youth work. So my name again, sorry for the live audience, my name again is Anastasija. I'm the coordinator from the Latvian side within this project. I go by she, her. And today with me, I do have the bestest speakers. So could you introduce yourselves? Mainly your name, pronouns, and what do you do in life? How come you're here on this panel?
Oh, that's a very big question, and I see Vicky gave me the signal to go first. Hi to the live audience, we love you. Thank you for being here. I'm Cathy, they, them, founder of Active Rainbow Platform and very proud co-founder together with Anastasija and Elina for our organization here in Latvia. And what am I doing in life? Lots of different things. If I will go with professional identities, I'm a youth worker, trainer, facilitator, project designer. I like to say it's like a Swiss knife and you can pick every side. Very intersectional identities also. And I'm very happy we're here for this program and to host both this event and to have this recording and to see also and reflect what has been in that project, but also what we can do more and what we can invite other also youth workers and educators, everybody who's listening, activists, on how we can be practically more inclusive on these hot topics, I would say. Yay!
Thank you and welcome.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Viktorija. I go by she, her. And if I had to describe my profile, I would say I mainly work in the field of the education. It's both academic education and non-formal education, which kind of overlaps with sexual education, because I mostly view teaching and learning about sexuality from the point of experience rather than data. I give this kind of, I would say, focus to that. But yeah, mostly I work with also educational projects, so I manage them. I do all the backstage stuff.
So very similar to Cathy, like the Swiss knife
Knife.
type of thing.
Two Swiss knives, yeah.
It's a metaphor I got from a very dear colleague of mine, and I'm like, that actually also describes my life.
Or like, the free artists, like multidimensional artists, creators and so on.
Yeah, I actually was thinking of myself more like umbrella. We say umbrella term. I feel like umbrella person. Like under myself, I have so much.
Under my umbrella.
Ella.
Yeah, but actually the creator part actually in the last 2 years, I think I reflect more to it. That in the end, if I reflect, like what I do is mainly creating the spaces and what we do also in Active Rainbow and what also Viktorija is doing also. So we're very, and it's a form of art also what we're doing, which I think it's something very nice to look into.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for introducing yourselves. I will not share more about myself. I will be the mysterious one. Besides, the coordinator of the Latvian parts of the project. Yes, so it was a very, very smooth and lovely introduction to who you are and what you do. And then coming closer to the topic of today, which is inclusion and inclusivity. We talk a lot about that in our everyday life and also knowing what we do. But do we know what that is? So my first question to you, whoever feels ready to go, how do we define like inclusive youth work or inclusive sex education? What is inclusivity? Let's define it so that it's clear for us for the further communication and conversation. Whoever feels like going first.
I feel like inclusive sexuality education is also very similar to youth work because we mostly focus on educating youth. And it means that we educate everyone despite their social status, economic status, identity, etc. We educate everyone equally. And we provide accessible information in an accessible way. And we don't highlight some certain specific experiences as the most dominant and normalized ones, but we normalize, accept and celebrate every identity when it comes to sexuality, gender identity, family status, romantic or other kind of relationships. So we view them as equally important and acceptable and not stigmatized, if it's a very academic definition. But in general, I can talk, I think, about inclusion and sex education for hours. So I think Cathy can do it for youth work. I will just say that inclusive sexuality education is a kind of a utopian thing because we can't make it always inclusive 100%, but we can try to reach this ideal inclusion where everyone feels safe and welcomed. And I think this is where it also touches the youth work, the inclusive youth work.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I wanted that, because also I noticed that for sex education, we don't really have a lot of talks or a lot of things happening. Also, if we look here in Latvia, and thanks to you actually, and some more people and a few more organizations, there is more things happening. But when it comes to inclusive youth work, I must say it's been such an overused also word, it's everywhere. And what I notice and what makes me also, or gives me actually motivation to keep doing what we're doing, is the fact that a lot of people have a misconception about inclusion, and that it's also boxed in a way that inclusion means let's include the people who have the so-called fewer opportunities, which is an outdated term in my perspective when it comes also to working with Erasmus Plus and working with young people. So a lot of people talk about it, but I noticed that there are a lot of terms and a lot of aspects and that we keep outside. And sometimes I feel like a lot of people in education talk about inclusion with outdated terms. And when it comes to inclusivity, I think Viktorija also described it very well. That also applies in youth work. And what I can add is the intersectionality part. And recently we had a project from a very dear colleague and ex-volunteer of ours, Project Reset, which I want to mention because it was made by our Cathy. It was their project, and what we worked there, it really was also eye-opening, both for me and also realizing what we still need to do and how we need to also work closer with youth workers, because we cannot talk about being inclusive and creating inclusive spaces without also touching upon intersectionality. So acknowledging that each person, whether you are a young person or an adult or like a youth worker, even, like we all have different identities that we might feel oppression based on different factors, and then also through intersectionality we can reflect on the privilege and on the power systems that we live actually on a daily basis. Then we also talked about accessibility. Accessibility not just in terms of how many people understand it, like only in regards to physical accessibility, but also to keep in mind neurodivergence and mental accessibility and photosensitivity, sounds, overstimulation, like all kind of stuff, and safety. Because to me, all these four pillars are all connected with how we can keep not just talking about social inclusion and how to empower young people to be active participants, but also how we can empower youth workers to become also active participants. Because many times I feel we forget that also as youth workers we still need to keep learning and to educating ourselves also. And based on some recent events and experiences, this is my very new mission, like already for a year now. We need to also work closer with youth workers and educators. Woohoo.
I like how you finish your story with like, whoa,
let's go.
Then we know that you have finished. Actually, you have touched briefly about like, yes, this is important and that is important, and being inclusive and creating inclusive spaces is important. I will say important 3 more times. But what has brought you as professionals in your own fields to this conclusion that yes, creating this whole concept of inclusion is important? What is the motivation? Why is it? Why do we do it? Why do you do it in your own fields, which overlap?
I think for me it's rage and anger.
Wow.
I'll be very honest.
I didn't expect it, but amazing.
Yeah, it's a very emotional response to the current system that prioritizes male pleasure, straight cis man pleasure, and prioritizes stigma over pleasure and safety over spectrum of sexuality and discoveries and finding something new rather than staying in these outdated norms.
Mm-hmm.
And I started my journey with just learning what consent is and searching for accessible and intersectional lecturers, because I didn't start with lecturing myself. I started with searching for people and understanding the situation in Latvia that we can't find people who could speak with like ethnic minorities, for example, that the all information accessible mostly in 1-2 languages, and it's just the start of it. And this rage and anger on the system, and it's not only the system within the country, it's also the system within the patriarchy and capitalism. I think I'm very angry that we don't have accessible materials for preventing pregnancies, for example, that reproductive rights are still a question in 2024, that some things connected with queer identities are still perceived as a threat for children and heteronormative relationships and all the things, and we don't still have representation for asexuality and intersex people. So it's a lot of things that make me angry, but angry in a way that I want to fight against it. I want to be the one who could provide things, and actually to be the one who could create materials and things for young self that I didn't had. And I had to face a lot of challenges within my life as a young person and learn the hard way and go to therapy and discover so many things so late in life, which is not necessarily bad, but makes me very angry. And my main motivation with starting inclusive sex education was to give youngsters the experience that is less traumatic and is more welcoming and accepting and full of discoveries that are more safe, I would say. So yeah, that would be my response.
Thank you.
Drop the mic, very, very nice. I could feel the whole sensation, and they're like, oh, talk more, yes, please, oof, I want to be there. And you're the first actually who made the sex last year with the first lecture here in Riga, no? In the university.
Yes, this year I started lecturing at the University of Latvia, the course on queer theory and media, which is less centered on sex education, but I do have a lecture on history of sexuality, for example, where we learn where did the man discover clitoris and how it affected our whole humanity.
Life-changing, huh?
Yeah.
Not even thinking about like big part of the population actually lives with that.
And clitoris was not depicted in the medical books, so mainly women, let's say, the reproductive organs of cis women and non-binary, and in general, the organs that were depicted were just vulvas and vaginas without clitoris, and it was all focused on pregnancy. And that was, for example, one of the basic steps how to actually talk about pleasure more. Yeah, but it's just one thing that also makes me very angry.
I love the word pleasure, clitoris, and then I can continue talking about like when it comes to sex education, like it should be by default, in my perspective, also informal learning, but also in relation to that, queer also education. There is a big part of the LGBTQ plus / queer culture that we are not learning about. And I think there is a commonality in the school systems that we focus so much on the theoretical parts and on mathematics, like things that can also are useful, let's say, but then we don't work in the formal part to support young people, how they can become better in their critical thinking, and how they can be more open-minded, and how they can work with their emotions and other different situations. And I think that's where also both inclusive youth work, because when we talk about youth work in our terminology, it's mainly also connected with non-formal learning. So at least what I do and what we do in Active Rainbow, it's not the academic part that we also very much need. So what you're doing, Viktorija, like it's so much needed also, and what other also educators are doing. And then these educators, we also still need to keep educating, because I had an opportunity recently to be in an event in a conference where I realized, we need to do more. In a conference where I was like, for example, misgender the whole 3 days. And so the inclusive safe space, somehow I feel like we keep talking about just the young people and then we forget about ourselves. Yes, we were also once young, but then also we need to keep creating safe spaces by default, safe enough spaces, brave spaces also for youth workers and educators, that we can keep bringing also perspectives, as well as also to acknowledge and confront our privileges that some of us have, because not everybody is in the room. We keep missing black voices, trans voices, we keep missing a lot of different voices, more neurodivergent voices also, and so on and so on. So what brought me in that motivation back in the day, but what still keeps me here is, I like how for you it's mainly the rage and anger, which I also have. For me it's more like the love part, but not in the pink eye glasses, but more like it's very personal. And I'm more like yes, love instead of no hate. Also, if you remember this Council of Europe very interesting campaign, no hate, actually all I could think about was hate, and then I'm like, that's not really a very good campaign in my perspective. But then how can we create spaces and give the spaces to young people to actually first ask them what are their needs, and then, because you will be surprised that most young people feel very surprised. I remember I also need to look at the audience from some time to time. Feel very surprised. Oh my God, you're asking about my needs now. Oh, what do I want to learn about sex education? Oh, what do I want to learn about gender and stuff? So I would go with this. Like, my motivation is love. It's that it's personal, and that once we give the space to young people, my God, queer gods, they can come up with all kind of different things that they need and they want to make and create and learn. And let's learn about pleasure. I would have been happy if I had learned that back in my days. Woohoo! I'm going to be talking with woohoo.
Be a separate podcast episode when we are talking about how the sex education has been back in our days. We're not that old, by the way. For people who are listening, we're not that old. We are in the best age, I would say. The best age is now. So let's keep it a mystery.
Yes.
But coming back to the topic and inclusion and so on, when I'm thinking back again in history, and when the term inclusion was starting the rise, so to say, also during in the project. First of all, we've been thinking about people who have some special needs, and like physical special needs, and so we didn't see beyond that. Then in our bubble, so to say, some people can be thinking that inclusion is only about the queer community. So let's open also the term intersectionality that I think was also mentioned by both of you. And what I hear in your stories, and especially in your story, I think that it's mainly, the inclusion is mainly about seeing not only myself, because sometimes we also don't see our own privilege, that, yeah, the pavements are okay, the stairs are fine, yeah, this is a TV screen that is big enough. But I think from the perspective where we are working, we start to think about, okay, for me this is comfortable and this is okay and acceptable, but there are more people in the room, and are we talking about their needs? So my question is, are we talking, when we are talking about inclusion, even though I kind of answered the question already, when we're talking about the inclusion and safer spaces, is it only about, let's say, sex education? The inclusive sex education would be, let's say, if it happens in school or somewhere else, is it just mentioning the queer perspective, or is it also about more? And same goes for the youth work, of course.
I can mention one simple example. 3 years ago was an Erasmus Plus project in Sweden, one of the most progressive and leading countries in sexuality education and inclusion. And we had different visits to their centers. One of them, for example, provides free condoms for young people till the age of 25. And they also have free counseling and consultations with psychologists where you can come and tell. And they were telling us that some young people come and they tell about their addiction to porn or kinks or trauma, assaults and everything around that, and they provide free help. And that was such a triggering trip to me that I came back to Latvia and started to search for therapy, because I couldn't imagine that in the country the government would care so much that they would give funding for young people to make them more safe. And we also had a visit by youth workers. That is actual job in Sweden. And they come to schools and they have this board game, a mammo game, where you have to match different body parts. And these body parts were not only white-abled, beauty standard parts, and they were not only genitals, but also hands and eyes and boobs and butts and everything. So yeah, I for the first time saw, for example, animated. They were not photos; they were animated ones. I think it's called mastectomy, or the procedure of having top surgery. Yes. So top surgery, for example, on a memo, and I had to, or different sizes and the skin color and disabilities. I saw them on memo cards, and that was shocking for me because I never saw these body parts in real life. Also, body hair, for example, was there. And I was like, wow, I cannot imagine that in 2021 in Latvia. That would be so progressive, and maybe also provoking for children to see actual body parts. And they do that in high school. This is just one example of having visibility in school books and card games, where you have people of different identities. That is just one part, not even talking about them, but just actually making them more visible. And this is also a discourse of normalization of experiences, of identities, of visual appearance, etc., etc. So I think this is just a one bare example, but in general, I think making sex education inclusive means that we talk about diversity and how it's both beautiful and also requires empathy. And more empathetic world, not only sexual education, but it means that we can fight against violence, hate speech, and hate crime, and create a society where there's zero tolerance to violence, which is a case in Latvia, unfortunately. Where we have this tolerance to violence, and also a world where we don't stigmatize the difference, where xenophobia is not something normal, but the diversity is the normal one. So that would be the short response, I guess.
Wow, how to top that, actually. I completely lost the question what we were talking about, because I visualize everything what you said, and it's like It's fascinating.
The initial question was like, so is inclusion and diversity and intersectionality, when we talk about it, is it limited only to, let's say, in our bubble, to queer-related topics? Let's say if that's youth work, that, hey, we are an inclusive organization, but mainly we just expect queers to come for the event. Or when we are talking about inclusion, is it inclusion limited to some specific group or topic or something when we talk about inclusion, or is it broader? Of course, I asked this question and we all know the answer, but just to also vocalize it.
Yes, by definition, it's broad, and it should be broad, though it's not happening as we would like for it to happen, because there are a lot of things that we need to normalize in youth work. I put my t-shirt on purpose because it's actually, it stays fact-wise like very simple actions that by doing them, not only we welcome those who are part of the queer community, but also everybody, because by default we need to start from the intersectional perspective. And if I'm an educator, to be able to, and I need to train, we need to train still ourselves. We need to unlearn what we're being taught from the formal education part, and we need to deconstruct a lot of different concepts that they're very stereotypical, very taboo, and construct new concepts. And we're in 2024, and it's the right time to also, the right time was like 10 years ago already, to be honest. Because we need to deconstruct a lot of different concepts that they're not anymore serving us, and they're not serving our work with young people, both also, I believe, for sex education, and already Viktorija said, but also when it comes to the general perspective of youth work. What I see also in society, and that can reflect also in a way that some other perhaps NGOs or youth workers, yes, there are some NGOs that were focusing on specific target groups, but there are also some NGOs who have the capacity to focus on more intersectional also aspects. For example, NGOs that there are in some countries that they work with people who are refugees or immigrant, but also that they're specifically also queer. Or for example, in our case, we work mainly with queer people, but we never said it's exclusive, because we also strive to work with those who are allies. And also we acknowledge that at all times we work with people, young and adults and so on, that we all have different intersectional backgrounds. At the same time, we also have a lot of similar needs. And I think every person, if I'm a young person, whether I'm queer or not, whether I'm a person who has some form of a disability or all kind of different things, what do I want? The simple question: I want to be seen, I want to be loved, I want to be acknowledged, I want to be taken seriously, where I also share my perspective and my different experiences. And I want spaces, both in my family environments, or relatives or whatever, also in my schools, where I can feel safe enough to express who I am and so on. I think that's a universal need. But then, of course, it comes into the more like local specific. Then, okay, queer people, we have even this need even more, because we are in a system that tells us, oh, we're not supposed to exist. Oopsies. And then education also, I think we are failing, like also in formal education. Instead of bringing young people together, we keep making divisions, and then we have bullying, we have power, privilege. And also, if we talk about bullies, like, okay, I also believe that those who are in the bullying side, they also have a lot of things that they also want to talk about, or they have abusive families also. So we need to start from the fact that there are a lot of things in youth work are universal, and we need to normalize a lot of processes. So every young person, by default, also how you have been mentioning it in our previous discussion, Anastasija, that by default there needs to be a safe enough space for every person to feel seen, acknowledged, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah.
I want to also mention from your question when you said, does inclusivity mean we include mostly queer people? Mm-hmm. And this is actually a trend what I see in a modern sex education system in Latvia, because we don't have the compulsory one at school. But what NGOs are doing, mostly like Center Smart or Papa Desiet, because I was in this role of going to schools and teaching stuff. If they are inclusive, that means that they touch asexuality or homosexuality. They will mention maybe in their materials that they give to youth workers in the training that there is this spectrum, or there is this gender identity and trans identity, and etc. So for them, inclusion means that you include this LGBTQ+, but not necessarily means that you include people with disabilities, people with neurodivergency, people from different social, economic class, ethnicity, migrants, etc. It doesn't come in education materials, and it doesn't come that make them accessible. No, it's all in the system of privilege, and it only means that we gave this step forward. We did include you. You should be like grateful. So this is still this need for intersectionality, not only this inclusion, but going deeper.
Exactly, yeah, and we're sign clapping because it's exactly what we keep seeing, and also when we are because I've been recently in those spaces where I was confronting this reality, and as a youth worker, I'm a person who also acknowledges that I do have certain privileges, and I have created certain privileges through the work that I'm doing, but at the same time, we need to keep acknowledging, and not just acknowledging, but see what are concrete actions we can take to bring voices of those who work with young people in very specific cases also, because we keep missing them. And then I receive a response that, but we're here and we're representing. No, you're not representing. We were in a room with 70 white, cis, gendered people. As far as I know, because I could not talk with everybody, I was the only non-binary person there. I had my pronouns in very, very big letters. And I was supposedly in a safe enough space with representatives from national agencies, from other youth workers. And it's not that I'm saying, oh my God, you're doing something bad. Is that the response I received from a few people there, that was 2 weeks ago, is that, but it's great that you're here and you can tell us and you can educate us. And I'm like, yes, but it doesn't work like that. It cannot be keeping that we keep educating all the time, every time in our lives. I'm also a person who goes as a participant somewhere, and I also went as a contributor. And yes, I'm contributing, but at the same time, I do have standards and expectations. It's 2024. I don't need to, keep... That makes me with rage. And I went out there very raged, like, oh my God, because I realized that we still need to do so much. And we cannot ask for people, because if I was not there, who would have said the different perspectives? Yeah, and then... So it means that we keep doing events and conferences where we're just there, the same people, we talk about the same stuff. Oh, how can we educate and train youth workers? But then I'm bringing this perspective and I see a wall and I'm like, okay. Nah. Can we meet in the middle? Can we somehow, those are my questions, and how we can keep meeting in the middle with cooperations, and don't ask me to educate you. Do your research before and see, okay, we're having this space. How can we include everybody's voice and needs also, accessibility needs and so on.
So I have two things to follow up on that. I think we've talked about the inclusion, how do we define it, but we didn't do the educational part of what intersectionality is. Could some of you give a brief explanation of what intersectionality is?
In whatever year it was, Kimberly Crenshaw, a Black American woman, came up with a way to describe how different identities overlap. And she called this term intersectionality, meaning that identities intersect and create this unique way of experiencing privilege and oppression. Mm-hmm. So basically, she created this term to describe how some Black women experience oppression, not only because they're women, but also because of their ethnicity and race. And then comes up the ability-disability factor, the education, the social economic class factor, and other factors that impact their way of living, their way of traveling, the way of having work, education, etc. So this is an academic way.
Yeah, to add on this, because it's, I have a thing, like I don't remember all the details, but it was in 1989 when she came up with that. I remember because it's 1 year before I was born. I'm like, ooh, look at that.
Okay.
But what I've been researching about it is also that the term, the framework was then that she put up, but already as a concept it was already from the 50s, 60s, and it is related to black communities and also in America. Ooh, this is America, the song. Yeah, I'm this entertainer. Yeah, so it's related also there, and also it started with because for me it's also important to keep mentioning that with trans women also and black women who. Okay, if we look back historically, you have women's rights, but then you have white women gathering for women's rights, and then the question is, but where are the black women? Where are the other, or like women with different color, all kind of things? So as a concept, it started then, and then this term more and more, also I think in the last maybe decade, or maybe I think actually in the last years, we're also very, very more busy with it in terms that as educators we need to keep educating ourselves and always go from the perspective of intersectionality because without it we're always missing things.
And my next question in regards to that, because I'm here to ask the tricky or, the, in parentheses, stupid questions, with the hope that maybe this recording will reach somebody who was actually looking for some answers. So my next question to you is, following up on that, is, but why is it important to hear different voices? Why is it important for education to be accessible, even though all of us, most probably in this room, know the answer, but why? Why do we need more voices? We have the parliament, we have the system that works for us, they should know better, blah, blah, blah. Why is it important? Why diversity is important? What is it bringing to the table?
I don't think they know better. If they knew, we would not be here. Okay. I don't know if Viktorija wants to go first.
There can be different points of view why diversity is important. Brings some economic goods also to include more people. I'm just working on a project on discrimination, so I've read a lot of data about why diversity is good in corporate. But in general, if we talk about social field, I think if we see that not only our experience is considered normal, but we normalize also the diverse, unique people's experiences, this can impact our empathy. And empathy is also a keyword in social campaigns, or also in understanding and accepting people. Not always we can understand people's experiences or identities, but we can always try to accept them and value them as equally important. And I think it's also important to not shame yourself, because if you see and hear diverse experiences and you can relate to them, that means that you can also easily accept yourself. That comes in so many different ways, starting with beauty standards for even like, I don't know, for women in general. When I was growing up and I saw all these magazines in the 2000s, I felt like I'm pressured to be skinny, to have makeup, etc. To also want marriage and kids. So all these instruments that pressure me, and I didn't know that there are diverse other ways to live. And when I started to grow up and accessing different materials, information, education, I understood that I'm not alone, and I'm actually allowed to be child-free, to not wanting dress certain way and performing a certain way, etc. It's just my personal experience, but I believe that the more people see how diverse we are, the bigger impact it has on lowering xenophobia. The fear of difference, the fear of something we don't see that much or understand that much, because xenophobia actually according to a lot of data and research, leads to hate crimes and hate speech that I mentioned, the bullying in schools, the mobbing, all the other things that people commit because of a lack of education, lack of understanding, and this defense mechanism of defending something, but either their children, their identity, their hometown, whatever it comes. And there, of course, are many other reasons why diversity is important, as we also talked about visibility and representation. Like, we in Parliament have only 30% of women right now, and I think only 2 politicians are openly gay, not queer, but we need more of that, for example, to also normalize in politics, to see that even these people, queer people can also be intelligent and smart enough to have important status in society, let's say in the system. But yeah, and in general, it's also the way to deconstruct the norm, deconstruct the system, which queer theory does. And I love it because queer theory in academia deconstructs not only the family discourse or gender identity or gender roles or sexuality, but also deconstructs the way we see status quo and norm, and what is normal and what is not normal, what is funny, what is unserious, and I love it. So I think diversity is important to also see how beautiful and how unique our world is, and to learn how to appreciate it.
Thank you.
Love it. I love it too. That will be a next t-shirt for sure in Active Rainbow by Vicky. Viktorija. Okay. Why is it important? I will just add in what you said. Like, for me, one of my raids when I was growing up, and it was like seeing all these historic Hollywood movies also, you know, I grew up with this type of normalization, but then historically, like, we live in systems that have been for centuries created mainly by people who identify as cisgender men, white in majority. And I find it still like there were so many things normalized, and people had to fight our ancestors in order to change things. And it seems like we still need to fight. I don't like the word fight, to be honest, but at the same time, like, it's not even 100 years. It's almost 100 years since women start getting rights, and there was a segregation. And maybe I'm confusing the terms now, but I think I am. But my point is that we live in systems that we need to go from the root, and by going through the root, we need to have a reality check-in moment, as I like to say, and realize that all of us, we are like parts of the society, and we all can contribute in our different ways. And it starts from education. Yeah, so we need to, in my perspective, we need to be able to make formal, non-formal learning, experiential learning a united force, and start combining these and creating more experiences for young people. Because while we're progressing, at the same time looking at the current socio-political, economic situation all around the world, it seems that we're going also backwards, because there are few people in power who know how to use the rhetorics and know how to use language in a way to get with them as to support, like, people who are actually mainly, in my perspective, uneducated, or like people who lack experiences. So when it comes to the topics that we're talking about, it's not only including creating space for including people, but also creating spaces that I can include myself, because I feel like normalizing things happens faster when we talk about also personal experiences, but then we don't have enough spaces for young people to feel safe and protected and brave enough to talk about also these spaces, whether it is experiences when it comes to sex education and overcoming certain taboos and stereotypes, or whether it is about other emotional experiences, because queer people experience also breakups, queer people experience also love. Everybody, I think, more or less, we experience that. There are people who are homeless, not necessarily are queer people, not necessarily are also refugees. People who steal. It's not only the people who are immigrants and coming. Because I really like that you, Victoria, keeps referring also to the xenophobia part. Because if we also check in the media news, and now I have opened so many topics right now, but if we talk like, let's say if somebody from Latvia, I don't know, goes and robs a bank, first thing what they will look is, are they white? Are they immigrant? Are they, oh my God, they're Latvian. Oh my God, they're from another country. Oh, very bad, very bad. At least that's my experience in my own country, in Greece, but I use Latvia as a reference since we are, of course, we are here. Latvia, woo, Independence Day, yay. But yeah, I'm opening so many topics. I'm excited, actually, and also angry, I don't know now, but it doesn't seem. So yeah, we need to start deconstructing to construct. That will be my key point. Yeah, thank you.
Because the things that how the world has been functioning up until now, it works for some, but it's not working for all. And I think to put if we want a really, really short answer, why diversity, why inclusion, from what you're saying, I think it's like the happier people are, the safer people feel, the more they can, like if we cover the basic needs that people need actually in life, the more they can, when we are talking about corporate and economy and stuff, the more they can create. But at the same time, you know, sometimes it might be tricky, like, oh, people having their own opinions, or people having their own choice, even over their bodies and so on, which is a separate topic I don't think we will manage to open today. But mainly, the more happy people are, the more they can create and contribute and so on. So it kind of, it multiplies.
Happy and safe. Yeah.
Happy and safe.
I think safety comes from these basic needs from the Maslow pyramid. Yeah.
Exactly.
But also to think that there are surveys going around which is the happiest country. So I think that's also very funny that then in the system we're playing in the role of, oh, who is the happiest country? Who are we in the top 10? Oh no, we're not in the top 10. Oh, we're so depressed. Like I also see that that the system tries to take advantage of that, and then all kind of different things. But then we're opening one more topic, maybe for the next podcast episode.
Yeah.
Next panel.
Next panel. Okay, and slowly we're also reaching the end of our episode. I think we maybe should make it into a series. Who knows?
I'm ready.
Because there are quite many things that we have opened up today. Even though you have mentioned some of the things, let's say I'm I don't know, just a bypasser, or I'm a youth worker, or I'm a teacher at school. And okay, I got interested in the topic of inclusion and inclusivity. Where do I start? What do I do? Where do I go? Do you have, like, I don't know, 3 good tips? Short, good, crisp tips.
You start by educating yourself, by following on social media people who you usually don't follow. So to get out of your bubble, maybe, or to get into new bubble, mainly to search for inclusive sex educators in your area or worldwide. You go or travel somewhere and go to the bookshop and buy some inclusive books, like Sex Ed Guide for Adults by Ruby Rare is a very good book that covers different identities and perspectives and is very easy to read, for example. I recommend it every time. But in general, to buy yourself a good book, to follow people you don't follow, and to start with the basics, learning about consent, Googling and going to Planned Parenthood website, one of the first and I think good examples of sex education online. They have a lot of materials, but basically starting with consent as a core that builds, there's a core on which to build your relationship with sex education, because everything starts with consent, no matter what kind of relationship it is, if it's romantic, sexual, or relationship with your colleague. It starts with boundaries and setting the boundaries. So I think consent would be this first topic to learn about. And then if you don't want to learn about whole biology, anatomy and stuff, I think it's important to learn on how relationships work, nonviolent communication. That would also provide some base for inclusive communication. And then go and check some LGBT plus activists. Like there is this, I think, non-binary activist Alok or Alok, yes. They have a book about being non-binary, Instagram and other platforms. So following the people who actually present the inclusion and their identities are connected with inclusion. So I think it's important to hear their voices. Also, maybe watching some podcasts or movies would help to get closer, because data shows the more stories from people, the more connection we have to these people, the more understanding we start to develop. Mm-hmm. So I think this personal connection is very important as well. So I would say everything that implies self-education and coming to events that you normally don't come, to listen to the stories, to be surrounded by these people, to also maybe normalize something in your head, to meet your own bias and break your own stereotypes. I think it's also very important. And then maybe you want to also draw a structure of your own privilege and oppression, to analyze your own status in society and realize how maybe grateful you are for your privilege and how you can use it to help the ones that are oppressed.
Thank you. That actually sounds like New Year, New Me plan for some people.
2025.
Very good.
Upgrade, yes.
Right. Software update, yes.
This we will make as a t-shirt also. A merch is coming out, like normalize and everything. No, just to add, I would go also for educating yourself, like to be... I don't think anybody's ever ready, but like to have the curiosity, go from the perspective of curiosity, not judgment. Like, of course, as humans, like judgment is there, but like with judgment, I think we're very, very limiting ourselves, and then go with the curiosity. So ask questions. First, ask questions to yourself. And of course, acknowledge what you just said, acknowledge your privileges, because I think majority of people feeling very uncomfortable to confront our own privileges and acknowledge and even be grateful about certain things, because many things we also take for granted. But be ready to question and take different concepts that you're already working with and question them also. Are these concepts still working? Erasmus Plus, for example, a project that is a funding that type of educational program that we all work with a lot, and many of us in the youth work in the NGOs. It exists since 1987. It's time that we question a lot of the activities there, a lot of the processes, a lot of the procedures, and are they still serving us? Are they still supporting our objectives and our target groups? Then be ready to acknowledge yourself as a beginner in many things. If I'm a beginner, it's not a bad thing as a capitalistic system tells us. No, if I'm a beginner, it's great. It means I don't know and I have space to learn. And invest on the books or find the people, ask questions. Don't be prejudiced that, is it a stupid question? No. Ask the questions and make research and connect with organizations, because, for example, we as Active Rainbow, we know a lot of stuff. We have expertise in queer community, but then we don't know other stuff in other fields, also within queer community. Like if you ask me about legal rights, I feel very not as skilled as our colleagues, for example, in Mosaica. Hey, puns intended. So. Connect with organization, find each other, go from the perspective of building bridges, being curious about each other, and be able to allow yourself to, actually things are not as I thought, or as media is telling me, or as other thing, and other, So it's very, very simple steps, and it takes simple acts to start a new movement and make daily change, which then it will be the domino effect I like to talk about in youth work. And and already I think it's also good to acknowledge that also here we have been doing quite a great job also in the last decades, and seeing the progress of everything, and how also now in Latvia where so many more organizations, each of us doing something specific, but then how do we meet in the middle? How do we navigate different things and conflicts or relationship, and how do we work together? Because actually we are working together towards things. And that's actually a great step. So how can we make connections where we can meet each other in the middle question, and keep educating also each other? Because, for example, I have experience working with people who are refugees and immigrants, but at the same time I don't feel as skilled when it comes to specific things and specific needs. So then also it's okay to ask for help and support, and denormalize to normalize in a way.
Yeah, I wanted to add that the next step, if you really want to be pro-inclusion and support this, is to become an ally and donate to organizations that do work, come to the events, sign petitions, and vote. I know that in Latvia we're 2 years in front of our next election, but looking at what is happening worldwide, I would say that personal becomes very political, and personal is political. And then if you think that queer rights or women's rights or reproductive rights, they don't attach to you, they will attach to your children, they will attach to your colleagues or friends. And I think the next step would be taking a proactive step in civic participation and political participation. And also sexuality education is a very political topic. Sexuality was always and is political. So I think the next step would be being proactive and not just looking at what is happening, but be a part of what is happening.
Cathy, you want
No,
to
I just want to say now it makes me think of Proactive Rainbow, and I wanted to make a joke.
A new t-shirt.
Also,
a new t-shirts.
No, a lot
all
of
of the
merch.
t-shirts.
Yeah, donate. Woohoo, thank you.
Yes, and also I actually adding up on what you said and thinking about Latvian reality, a tip from me would be to, also in regards to privilege and so on, recognizing your own privilege is extremely important, because due to our history here, and that's my personal take on it, in many cases we're very stuck in this victim position. Everyone is bad, system is not doing me any good, people are not doing me any good, especially people who are new to my environments and so on. Stepping out of this, what can I do? What can I learn? Basically, all of the things that you've mentioned, to just notice this part. Am I in a position of a victim right now? Or am I in a privileged position? But moreover, more love, more mutual understanding, diversity, and the fact that we are very different by default. And this is a fact. It's not something new. We cannot, change the color of our skin. We cannot change many things about us. And why spend time on this earth, hating on each other or something? Sometimes we do need to have spicy fights and spicy conversations, so to say, uncomfortable conversations, both with ourselves and other people, and challenging each other for sure. But in the end of the day, what do I do with this time I have on earth? That became very philosophical.
Existential crisis.
Next episode.
Existential crisis, but
audience
yes.
is liking it.
Just to check in with the audience, do you have any questions to our speakers or to this panel? I will count to 3. There are no questions. Maybe they will come after the recording will be
off. I think so.
But this has been Project Love, actually, and a discussion during our forum here in Riga. So thank you to those of you who are here live. Thank you to those of you who are listening this. If you do have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you to the Erasmus Plus program. This has been a part of Love Actually project, which is Key Action 2 program. Thanks to our partners in Czech Republic, Konsent. Thanks to our partners in Slovakia, Intymyta. And this has been Active Rainbow here in Latvia and Riga.
Woohoo!
And thanks to Viktorija. Thanks to Cathy. And
thank you.
Thank you to Nastya for carrying us.
And maybe we will hear each other or see each other somewhere else.
Very soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.